Hey there folks, I thought after the Bioshock video it would be really great to make a list of my personal top 10 favorite games. I think this will be a really good way for all of you new subscribers to get to know a little more about me and the kinds of games that I'm interested in. Also, I tried to really convey why specifically I like each of these entries so much, so hopefully between that and the background, this will be a very engaging and interesting top 10 video because there are a lot of those here on YouTube. Alright, let's get going. Pokemon. There are a lot of games that would fit nicely in this number 10 slot, but I feel like it would be dishonest of me not to include Pokemon on this list because it's more than a game. And I think those of us born in the 90s and early aughts understand this better than most. Pokemon was a sensation, an obsession, an escape, and even a schoolyard economy if you played the trading card game. For a year or two, it literally filled our little kid brains to the brim with interest and excitement. For me, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald were my first real Pokemon game experience, and they're my favorite to this day. I know there's a fair bit of nostalgia bias there, but it's just how I feel. The reason Pokemon isn't higher on this list is because, despite being a huge part of my childhood, I've found that I've kind of fallen out of love with the series. And this could very well be because I've simply outgrown them, but I can't help but feel like the Pokemon games are probably the most archaic RPGs that are still released today as AAA titles. I most recently played Let's Go Eevee, and I was kind of taken aback at how identical it was to every other Pokemon game I've ever played. Once I settled into the new visuals and features, like riding my Pokemon instead of a bike, I realized that every single Pokemon game is nothing but repetition. Talk to every NPC if you want to get all those useful items. Battle people in order to clear the path for travel, and if you avoid them, you might end up slightly underleveled. I love how the newer gyms use puzzles, but I still have to fight like 8 trainers that I really don't want to in order to get my badge. And it takes so long, and it's all usually spent in one room or a series of very similar rooms. So much of Pokemon's gameplay is simply slowing the player down with animations and menus. And the actual strategy component, I mean, it's there, but if you're not intentionally making the game difficult for yourself, you just don't need to think about it at all. I always end up switching Pokemon less for strategic purposes and more because I don't want to admit to myself that my starter is probably capable of winning 90% of the early game on its own. On one hand, I get that these are all the grievances of an adult who isn't nearly as entertained as finding a Pikachu in the Safari Zone as his 10-year-old counterpart, but on the other hand, it's been almost 30 years and we haven't even gotten a difficulty slider for more experienced players. I just feel like every time they try to innovate on this series, it's with an extremely gimmicky mechanic that does very little to alter the gameplay. I deeply hope the new Legends Arceus game is a Pokemon game with more contemporary JRPG elements because I really want to fall in love with this series again, but for now, here it is at number 10. Spider-Man. Okay, obviously this entry is referring to Insomniac's Spider-Man PS4. I mean, what can I say about it? Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, so he will get his fair share of videos on this channel, I'm sure. Spider-Man PS4 is in my mind an amazing superhero game. The controls feel incredible. The city is just detailed enough to make swinging through it feel like realistic, elegant, high-speed bliss. Its narrative does a perfect job with Peter Parker, just as it does with Spider-Man. And it unfolds like the best comic book stories do. It contains countless little nods to the source material, and it manages to reinvent and innovate on many aspects of the world of Spider-Man, while still holding on to the key notes for each of the characters. The alternate suits are nothing short of stunning, and I will forever adore them for adding the Raimi suit at the request of diehard fans. I love this game, top to bottom, inside and out. I have nothing but respect for the designers and the developers who worked on it. So why is it only number 9? Well, as you can probably tell, I love Spider-Man, and I have thoughts and opinions on the way things should be. And I always feel like tiptoeing around criticisms I have for modern content that I have an attachment to because in this day and age, passion for the old can so easily turn into bitter and toxic spite towards the new, and I think that's really harmful. So I'll be as honest as I can, but hopefully without coming off as bitter or mean, because that's really not my intention. When they changed the face of Peter Parker for this series, I was honestly super confused and surprisingly devastated by something like that. When the earliest trailer came out, I noticed that the first actor they chose to portray Peter actually looked a fair bit like me. And all my buddies who played the game agreed, there was an uncanny resemblance. And sure, it's childish, but that made me really fucking happy. Spider-Man is a character I think we're all meant to relate to on some level, so to be able to play a Spider-Man game and also to just look like the Peter Parker in the game world was something of a dream come true for me, and it only enhanced my love of the game. Then, in the midst of my excitement for the Miles Morales DLC, Insomniac announced that they would henceforth be using a different model for the face of Peter Parker, citing animation quality as the reason. Even people who didn't have my extremely specific doppelganger affinity were pretty upset by this. This is a face we connected to during an extremely riveting first game, and to have it just be changed permanently all of a sudden, I don't know. I mean, I love you, Insomniac, but that hurt. And honestly, it still kind of hurts. I really dislike when big companies do things like that, because it sort of reminds us how little control we have over the details that really matter a lot to us. And if I'm totally honest, I don't know that I agree with the reasoning. I mean, the animations are comparable to me at best. I struggle to see why this would be done, but then again, I'm not a 3D animator or rigger, so if you are one, I'd love to hear a professional's opinion on it. Maybe this decision saves the teams literally hundreds of hours of work, but bottom line, I miss the old face and I find it hard to connect to the new one. So, no offense to the new actor, I mean, it's a very good looking face. Alright, this entry has totally gotten off the rails. So, I also love Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, but realistically I know it's not as good as PS4, so that's the end of this entry. On the next one, bye bye. The Batman Arkham series. Don't worry, my opinions on Batman are not nearly as strong as my opinions on Spider-Man. I remember playing the Arkham Asylum demo over and over again with my brother on our PS3, so the series has a special place in my heart for that alone. But honestly, everything I said about Spider-Man PS4 is true about the Arkham series. And the Arkham games have been around longer, so they have more credits to their name. The DLCs, the alternate suits, the voice acting, y'all, the voice acting in these games is unmatched. Kevin Conroy's Batman and Mark Hamill's Joker are simply quintessential. And I actually have quite a bit of love in my heart for Arkham Origins. I think it's a pretty stellar prequel, and I think Roger Craig Smith and Troy Baker do a bang-up job as the younger versions of those characters, but my favorite of the series has gotta be Arkham City. I consider the Arkham games to be master classes in theming and set design. And the city of Gotham is honestly a very difficult thing to nail down from an art direction standpoint, but these games just have a vibe that is so unique and enthralling. Honestly, they come close to the Bioshock series for me from a design standpoint. Everything, and I mean everything, is considered, from the architecture to the characters to the shape of the freaking doors. You've got great gameplay, perfect theming, great story, perfect voice acting. It's just an incredible game. Honestly, I feel like the Arkham games are the metric by which all other Batman projects should be appraised, because you just can't do it any better. Also, this teaser for Arkham Origins is one of my favorite video game teasers ever. Take a look. Portal. Look, my household was a PlayStation household through and through, but eventually, when I was in middle school, my brother was able to get a Gen 1 Xbox 360 off a buddy for like $40. And we proceeded to paint it blue with blue hair color spray because we didn't have any actual paint. And then it came time to go to GameStop and buy a game. Ah, the orange box. 3 games in 1, what a deal. And the first of the 3 I jumped into was Portal. And Valve's work, especially back during that console generation, really felt absolutely groundbreaking, especially on Portal. The mind-bending gameplay that makes you feel smarter with each puzzle solved, and the subtle darkness and mystery that looms around every corner of the sterile testing facility. It's so uniquely Portal. And the sound design is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated features of this series. The little noises for everything are so carefully considered. I mean, listen to this.
Hi, target acquired. Dispensing product. Firing. Hello, friend. Gotcha. There you are. I see you. Hello. Searching. Canvassing. Sentry mode activated. Is anyone there?
After beating the first, I beat the second. And after beating the second, I read the comic. And after I read the comic, I read the theories. Portal manages to give you so much and yet so little of its story. There are questions unanswered that don't feel like loose ends so much as they feel like permanent unknowns that you just need to accept and move on. They are games that make you think of the lonely corporate wasteland of a world we often find ourselves in. The Backrooms-esque horror of being left alone amongst the midst of ruins to an industrial enterprise with a long and dynamic history. Brilliant technologies designed for a world that simply doesn't need them. Products being tested endlessly to find a use case that doesn't exist. Workers who have become permanent slaves to the greed of their superiors. Aperture Science is a void of misplaced dreams where impossible and enthralling objects rot alongside those who failed to change the world with them. You have no life outside of this place, and yet when you play Portal, your only desire is to escape. It's like wading in a river of melancholic awe. The Elder Scrolls. Yes, I have only played Oblivion and Skyrim, but I nonetheless adore the Elder Scrolls series. With lore that is comparable in density to an actual world history textbook and an unspeakable impact on gaming history, the Elder Scrolls are for many, myself included, the quintessential fantasy video game series. In my experience, Oblivion has some excellent quests and a more elaborate kind of open-endedness to its gameplay and story, but Skyrim is just perfection through and through. There's a reason it always gets re-released, because frankly, people will buy it, and because it's a game that we trust and its replay value is unprecedented. My most recent playthrough was inside of PSVR, and despite the graphical limitations, I found myself completely taken aback by the splendor and beauty of the environments around me. Blackreach, Winterhold, and Windhelm especially were just magnificent. I found myself talking to NPCs even outside of scripted dialogue, trying to fill the voids of silence between me and my companion because you just feel the presence of other entities more in VR. I adored letting myself be totally immersed by everything the game had to offer, shooting ice bolts from my hands and loving every second. Look, people can and have spoken at length about everything Skyrim does right and wrong for itself, and I think I could certainly join that debate if I had to, but the bottom line is that I literally felt cold when I found myself wandering alone in the woods on a snowy night in PSVR. I got to hold Dawnbreaker in my hands and physically examine it. I was able to fight alongside my lifelong buddy Jazargo, may he rest in peace. Sorry about that stray ice storm, buddy, that's a tricky one to aim. Anyways, it's not as outside the box as a lot of my other entries, but Skyrim is almost as much a monument as it is a game, and I can't wait for Elder Scrolls 6. Except I can wait. Please, Bethesda, do not rush its release. I would like it to be finished when I play it. You can't rush a modern RPG. Take as long as you need to get it done. Moving on. Uncharted. Good grief, it's our generation's Indiana Jones. It's all the excitement of an action movie inside of a game. The Uncharted demo was the first teen-rated gaming experience I ever had. My brother was allowed to play it, but my parents worried about the effect the blood might have on my little kid brain, so I had to literally sit down with them and convey why I thought it looked so fun, so good. I remember sitting down with my dad the first time I played and seeing him chuckle at the jokes that Nate made during the crash landing cutscene on the hidden island, because I can only assume they reminded him of the heroes of his youth. Uncharted was one of the first game series I was able to experience in its entirety. As each game released, my brother and I would unite on the couch and watch each other play. We would peel through the issues of Game Informer looking for any information on the next game. And the opening of Uncharted 2 is still one of the best openings to a game I've ever seen in my life. I remember losing my mind with my brother as we watched Nate desperately climb the falling train. How could a game possibly open like this? What would happen next? And by the time the fourth game came out, he had gone off to college, so it was very fitting that the only Uncharted game I would play without him would use brotherhood as a major theme in its story. I think all the Uncharted games are masterpieces, but number 2 is probably still my favorite to this day, which is why it's number 5 on this list. I don't really have much else to say here. The series just has an important piece of my heart. Red Dead Redemption. If Uncharted is our Indiana Jones, then Red Dead is our Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Behind the endlessly engaging expanses of untamed wonder, there is a story about the inevitable dawn of modernity, the clash between the wayward outlaws and cold systems of order that sought to control them, and the beautiful lives that were wasted along the way. When Red Dead 2 first came out, I wondered why we weren't placed in the shoes of a younger John Marston, because the first game taught us how to love that character's stoic and reserved disposition, which was a fitting protection for the surprisingly sensitive person hidden underneath. However, the second game places us in the shoes of the older brother that had to learn all of his lessons in the worst way imaginable, and who found the care and patience within himself to impart those virtues on a much younger and more irresponsible John Marston. Arthur Morgan manages to perhaps be one of the most nuanced protagonists in any Western story ever. Add that to an open world that's so full of life and detail that it's difficult to imagine a better use of the modern hardware necessary to make it all happen. Red Dead Redemption 2 is literally an American landscape painting brought to life, and that's why it's my number 4 pick. Also, the Undead Nightmare DLC for the first game manages to be the best single-player zombie experience that I've ever had, hands down. Rockstar has earned my deepest respect for this series, and I can only assume Grand Theft Auto 6 will be another absolute game changer. Ico. Okay, this I know is kind of an obscure pick for a lot of you, especially for number 3. Ico is best defined as a cult classic PS2 game from 2001. This game came out when I was an actual baby, so how did I come to play it? Well, I actually played it earlier this year because I really enjoyed Shadow of the Colossus, and Ico is from the same developer. It actually shares a universe with it. So I downloaded an emulator and very legally obtained a ROM for Ico so I could try it out. And I loved it to a degree that I had no business really loving it. Shadow of the Colossus gets a lot of praise for its beautiful environments, its less is more approach to gameplay, and its uniquely somber and ambiguous tone, and rightfully so, but all of those things were perfected, in my opinion, the first time with Ico. It's really difficult to convey to someone who hasn't played the game, but Ico manages to be perhaps one of the most cinematic gaming experiences I've ever had. The camera is movable, but if you don't touch the right joystick, it will pan and transition beautifully with you as you explore the levels. The game never tells you which button to press or where to go. Not even once. It's simply so intuitively designed that you find yourself naturally falling onto the right path pretty much every time. The characters barely speak. There's nothing to pick up and read or audio logs to listen to. There's a phrase in film directing called show don't tell, and Ico is a beautiful exercise in such an idea. There are so many different kinds of beauty in this world, and Ico has the looking glass kind, where it makes you feel as though you're looking through a window, getting a distorted view of another world. At a certain point, it stops feeling like a game at all. Ico is as much an experience for the heart as it is a forgotten relic of PlayStation 2. There were moments when I was playing where I would notice the animations or mechanics, and I would say something like, wow, this was really innovative for 2001, but the most incredible moments I had while playing it came when I would just let go of my preconceived notions and trust my instincts, only to find that the game was communicating with me on a level that I didn't know was possible. If you're willing to give it a chance and you feel like you could get through a old forgotten classic game, I highly recommend playing Ico. It might be the only game that I've ever played that has brought me to tears as I was playing it. Minecraft. Okay, so we've gone from the most obscure entry on this list to the most well-known. Minecraft changed the world, and it changed the world in a way that only a game like Minecraft ever could. It wasn't some incredible new technology that changed the industry forever. It wasn't a wildly controversial title that had parents up in arms due to violent content or mature themes. Minecraft was, in my opinion, the first game to ever give players unadulterated freedom. Furthermore, it makes that freedom fun and accessible. As an artist, one of the unspoken realities of making art for school or on commission is that even though you might love what you're doing, your brain will inevitably begin to call it work. When you have deadlines and criteria you need to meet, the activity stops becoming pure leisure. And that's perfectly okay with me. If I never asked something like that of myself, I would never improve. But Minecraft has not only a special place in my heart as a game, but also a special place in my practice as an artist. If I'm experiencing a true creative rut, Minecraft is always there. Even if I don't want to draw or sculpt or make in any way, I still usually want to play Minecraft. And before I know it, between laughing with my buddies and appreciating the endless procedurally generated world around me, I'll find myself designing and building, reminding myself why I love to make in the first place. It's the only thing that really unseizes those gears for me. There's so many ways to enjoy Minecraft too. If you don't want to build, you can just do PvP. If you don't want to do that, then there are an endless array of games people have created within it. And that's just the thing. Minecraft is a sandbox game both for players and for people with the know-how to modify and implement new features, to build game modes, adventure maps, and mod packs. In fact, one of my long-running background projects is a custom Minecraft resource pack. It's a lot of work, and I'm not even close to done, but Minecraft gives me the freedom to make it look however I prefer it look, and that reality excites me. If I ever do stream, I will almost certainly start with Minecraft, and it's number 2 on this list because it's a game that I feel genuinely heals me. Playing it is a meditation, and playing it with friends is an opportunity to act like the children we wish we could always be. It also started who knows how many YouTube channels. Minecraft was like 80% of my viewing experience in middle school. Bioshock. If you are surprised by this, then that's great, because it could only possibly mean that this video blew up separately from the Bioshock Iceberg video that launched my channel, and you're a stranger who isn't subscribed to me. For the rest of you great people, it's really no wonder at all that the Bioshock series is my favorite of all time, but I bet you're all dying to know which of the 3 is my actual favorite, and believe it or not, it's number 2, which I know is kind of an unpopular stance, but I played all 3 right side by side, and Bioshock 2, especially when you include the DLC Minerva's Den, is the best of the series for me. But let's talk about the first game for a moment, because that's the one that invents everything I love about these games. Underwater Art Deco from a design standpoint was nothing short of lightning and bottle, and I don't know what other elements could be paired to make a more unique, interesting, and visually compelling setting for a game. I remember talking to a friend of mine about Bioshock 1, and after I ranted on and on about it, he said to me, "You most enjoy games that you can play with your spirit." And I couldn't agree more. Sure, Bioshock is a first-person shooter with horror elements, but unlike other forays into those genres, Bioshock asks you to use your spirit when you play. If you do that, you'll be riveted. The forlorn groans of the Big Daddies will break your heart. The misguided ravings of the splicers will make you absolutely pity them. The audio diaries will be fascinating distillations of human nature, and the game's twist and eventual conclusion will rip you apart and put you back together again. Bioshock 1 is to me a game that explores the weaponization of human freedom, and Bioshock 2, on the other hand, is a game that explores the weaponization of human love. To me, Bioshock 2 is able to take everything great about the first game and tastefully elaborate on it. The gameplay is a little more dynamic. The story is structurally different but thematically cohesive to the first, and the second game's soundtrack has my 2 favorite arrangements from the franchise, Pair Bond and Eleanor's Lullaby. Bioshock 2 also has a more dynamic array of endings based on your choices, and a DLC that is effectively another standalone game in its own right. Look, it's really close between the first two games, but I think I just enjoy the second maybe 1% more, and that's what this list is all about, right? Rapture is possibly the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Every game on this list makes me wonder, but Bioshock simply makes me wonder the most. It's pure poetry. Its effect on me as a person, as an artist, and as a YouTuber, apparently, cannot be understated. Hey everybody. I thought I'd use this outro as an opportunity to discuss this weird experimental style video that I've just made. So, for most YouTubers that do this type of content, I feel like there's almost no delineation between a video essay and something like a review. One is opinion-based content and one is research-based content. And so for me, I think it's really important to have there be a strong delineation in format between those two things. So something like this wouldn't replace the video essay style stuff that I like to make, like the ludonarrative dissonance video or even the Bioshock iceberg, because even though that wasn't an essay, it was still heavily research-based. However, if I do feel like reviewing a game or a movie, or I have something that's kind of just more opinion-based that I do want to share, but I don't want you guys to take too seriously, I would like there to be a format for that. And I make stuff all the time, so I might as well film what I'm doing, and then hopefully videos like this would kind of give the sense that I'm in my workshop building something and we're having a conversation and it's not super serious, so, you know, don't take it to heart. If that works for you guys and you found this entertaining, then that's great. Please let me know in the comments, because information like that is still really useful to me. And if you didn't like it, and there's a strong precedent that I should never make a video like this again, that's totally fine too. This was just a little trial run of something. So I would appreciate it if you'd be polite, but you're welcome to lend any criticisms that you have in the comments as well. I think that's all that I've got. These tables turned out okay, I guess. I also didn't really want to seem like I was in any position to instruct people on how to make these, because I'm not an expert. This was my first time doing it. So if you do have questions about the making component, I'm happy to answer them. But like I said, there's a lot of really great YouTube videos on how to make river tables like this, and you'd probably be better off pursuing those than getting advice from me. Okay, anyways, I don't want to ramble, so I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching, especially this far along if you did, and stay tuned for more. Thanks. Bye-bye.